Welcome to K-9 Conversations. I'm Connie Dwyer, and I'm here today with my host, Sara Hamburger, and we are going to chat about dog body language. And it's a very important aspect. I think a lot of people don't really know about it or understand it. And we've done some courses on it, and I'm always talking about it in class just so people, are aware of their dog's communication with them. So I know you had a couple of things you really wanted to talk about today, Sara. You had written things down. So why don't we have you kind of remind me what they were, and we'll talk about them in that order.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think body language is not talked about enough. I think it is probably one of the most important things that have aided me in us in our jobs to train dogs better and to educate owners and shelters better on how to understand dogs. I mean, you can't understand another person without understanding their language. It's the same with dogs or animals. Understanding what they're trying to say to you is so important to understanding how to help them. And one of the questions that I had written down that we wanted to talk about was, why is body language important? Canine body language important, or any animal body language important? So I think we should start out with that topic. Kind of explain the millions of points we could discuss why it's important to understand that. And I agree with you that it's not discussed enough. And I think there's a gap between training and helping animals because there is that language barrier that we don't understand.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not that relevant. Maybe if the dog is a happy-go-lucky type and we don't have to particularly worry about situations in a training classroom or out on the street, whatever. But we do have situations where there might be some behavioral issues, and depending on what type of training class you're in, they could be maybe communicating something and that you need to be aware of because you could run into trouble. And usually people kind of know when they come to a class that their dog is shy or a little afraid or whatever, but they might not really understand all the signals that are being given. And, some training classes you can go in and the trainers are just going to shut it down physically, right? If the dog's barking a lot, they might have corrections to get the dog to stop barking, but that's a body language, right? Something that the dog's doing. Barking could be lunging, growling, tail underneath its legs, but it's something you have to understand, that you can't just shut down the physical body language because there could be something behind it that is fear or some kind of emotion. So understanding body language is important, but I think difficult to maybe always get through to people in a regular class where you might be teaching sit, down, stay. You're not really addressing any other issues that might be coming up. So that's why we're talking about this. And what I will do when I do publish this is have, and we talked about it, pictures of different types of body language. And one of the ways I know we've talked about it is distance increasing and distance decreasing, right? Which means distance increasing body language would be growling, barking, lunging, different things that the dog's doing to put more distance between them and whatever they're afraid of or concerned about. And then distance decreasing, not so worrisome, right? Because those dogs are trying to get dogs and people to come into their space and play and have a good time. So, but still, it's good to know those two. And that's just one way to describe them, but that's what we'll put out on here too. And I don't know if we want to talk about that specifically, or you want to get into maybe a little bit more about why it's important, and maybe not necessarily exactly the different body language positions or, you know, to show that.
Well, I think they're all important components of understanding body language, and it being able to implement the correct type of training, because I grew up with dogs my whole life, and until I entered the shelter system where I was trained properly into understanding body language. And you had to in the shelter system because you didn't know what dog was coming in. Like, right, you had a dog that was surrendered, you had to be able to handle that dog, to read their body language like a map and know, is this dog going to bite me, is this dog afraid, is this dog good to go. And I have tons of stories to share about that, because you really had to understand body language, and it opened up such a immense window of understanding dogs that I never dog life. So understanding what lip licking meant, understanding what a tail tuck meant, understanding what yawning meant in a dog's world, and it kept me safe from getting bit, and my employee or my staff safe as well. And so I really learned quickly how important it was to understand that. And you get really good at reading their body language, and knowing, okay, well, this dog's lip licking, it's yawning, it's not because it's tired, it's because it's stressed. And I think that that's really something that I give to my clients or the shelters I work with and teach their staff, is understanding body language is the forefront of understanding how to handle a dog and how to give it what it needs. I mean, can you imagine being in speaking with someone you didn't understand their language, and they're trying to explain to you how they feel, and you can't help them, right? So I don't know if it's good or bad, but I always look at it from a dog's perspective. I go up to a dog and I'm not thinking like, okay, this dog's biting because you're touching its food, or biting because you're touching the dog, or grooming the dog. I'm looking at it from a dog's perspective, and I see the dog is yawning, its lip licking, its hackles are up, its tail is tucked, and I'm trying to brush it. Knowing that body language means that it doesn't feel comfortable with me doing that.
Right.
So to keep me from getting bit, or my clients from getting bit, or understanding, in a shelter system, the staff that have to handle these dogs, teaching them this can prevent that dog from biting them, and understanding why, this dog is telling you, like, I'm not comfortable with this, and respecting that and understanding that. It says, okay, well, this is what we need to do then with training. We need to work on its trust. We need to work on this or that, X, Y, or B, or whatever.
Mhm.
And I just think that's really important. It's a core understanding in training, and being able to uh, give our dogs the best training and environment that we can, really. So
Right. Yeah, and I remember when we were in the shelters there and everybody was having issues with assessments, but basically that's what you're doing whenever you're,
right.
confronted with an animal, you're making an assessment. Are they safe? Am I going to be safe? And all of the signals that you're discussing and giving examples of, which I'll also throw out pictures of that so people can see, are part of an assessment, part of understanding what they're saying as much as you can, and making sure you don't push them past a threshold point and, like you said, get bitten, or your clients get bitten, or whoever is handling the dog. And those are things not to say, oh, this is a bad dog, it's aggressive or whatever. It's really to figure out what type of behavior work training they need so they can feel better about life. Something's bothering them, right? We're going to try to make their lives better, our lives better. So it's pretty critical piece. That's missed a lot, I think. People just want a perfect dog and they just want them to stop barking and, whatever. And it's sometimes not that easy, right? Just stop
Right.
it.
And a perfect animal does not exist just as well as a perfect human doesn't exist.
Right.
And I think dogs, they're put in the ringer, like they're expected to be perfect. And they're one of the species that I feel so bad for because they are constantly communicating with us, but they're also a species that they're really, really great at adapting to us and
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
not understanding them, right? So they have to, like, we tell them when to go to the bathroom, when to eat, when to sleep, you know, and the control they have over their environment is very little. So they have to find ways because there's that gap that we talked about, that gap where we don't understand them as much as they understand us, right? So they understand our communication: sit, stay, lay down, eat, sleep, go,
Yeah. Or even our body language, because they're better at reading that. So we're
right.
probably doing things in a repetitive way, probably not even noticing what we're doing, but you can sense the way they're looking at you and watching you when you're getting ready to go somewhere. They see all of those signals much better than we do, that's for sure.
Yeah, because their language is body language,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
It's not so much verbal. So they're masters at body language. That's what they read off of, like,
Yeah.
even coyotes and dogs, whatever, or wolves in the wild, they howl and all that stuff, but their main language is body language. So the
Right.
more we understand their language, the better we can understand how to help them through their issues that they have, their behavior issues. So they can be, you know, uh, whale eyeing us, and we never notice it because we don't in tune with their body language. Or they could be hackles up, or they could be cowering, or they could be urinating, and we just see that as, well, my dog urinates every time I go to brush her, and how can I help that? Well, why is your dog urinating every time you take a brush to her or him? There's a fear issue there, right? And a lot of people don't understand that because they don't understand body language. So filling that gap and helping, like, I know with a lot of my clients, when I talk to them, well, does your dog yawn a lot? Like, start to notice these things. Keep a journal.
Right.
Uh, does your dog yawn a lot? Does it do a lot of shake offs where it shakes its coat like it has water on it? And start filling that out in a journal and notice if it does those things, because your dog probably has fear-based behaviors that you don't even know. So
Right.
that's where I think body language and understanding their language is such an important and key component to being able to train correctly, to, help
Yeah.
their behaviors and help them feel safe.
And it's not like discrete signals, right? So it's really like a nose to tail, like you mentioned, hackles, and a dog could still be wagging his tail, have his hackles up, be okay or be not okay, meaning they're comfortable with what's going on and they're just maybe slightly aroused, or they're going to attack whatever is in front of them. So it's something you really have to look at. Well, are there whiskers pointing forward as their body stands forward? Are their hackles up? Is their tail wagging? That's a whole sentence there. And that's a little bit more complicated, I think, for people to understand, but it's still, you have to start somewhere. And journaling is a great way to do it because that's how you're going to learn. Going, watching videos, going to taking courses, whatever. If you have a dog, especially not, yeah, if you have a happy-go-lucky dog, you obviously probably don't even need to do that. Still good to do it because you could be walking down the street and somebody else has a dog like that you maybe don't want to go near. Because I've heard people say, "Oh, my dog's fine," and they're not fine. So they're not reading their dog correctly, or whatever. But it's definitely helpful and it's interesting. If you have a dog, you obviously have a dog because you love dogs. So maybe you should learn about body language just because it's fun, you know, to understand what they're saying a little bit more, yours and others. So,
Absolutely. I think like you hit the nail on the head is, I started, I had dogs my whole life, and then I went to the shelter system, and I had to learn a lot about body language, more for uh, dogs coming in. I learned through you. I learned through handling the dogs, and it saved me a lot from. I look back on some of the scenarios I was in. I was like, I did not know as much as I should have known going in with that dog, and it's telltale signs that I was pretty lucky not having been bit, and now I know the signs pretty well, and I think that it is something that a lot of owners, like, I've grown up with dogs, but my whole life, since I was an infant, but you and it humbled me to go into the shelter system and learn body language because I had to tell myself I don't know everything. So
right,
it's not um that we need to get our egos in the way or anything like that, but understand that body language I'm still learning today, um, dealing
right,
with dogs and clients and understanding where the owner is coming from, that they don't understand what lip lick means or yawn means or this or that, and why their dog is doing what they're doing or growling with the food bowl or growling at people coming in. I said it's you don't want to punish a growl. The
right,
dog is warning you, stay away, I'm uncomfortable. So, look at it from, I don't want to humanize things, but you look at it from a human perspective. If you had a child that was afraid of going on stage or afraid of swimming, you don't want to throw them into the deep end of the pool, right? They're
right,
telling you, I'm afraid, their body language is telling you, um, certain things. So take them in slowly, teach them that it's okay to put your feet in the pool and just sit there with them. Like, so you begin to understand how to adapt their behavior to their fears or restrictions that they have and get them over that point, if that makes sense, and to help them get over that fear
right.
slowly.
Yeah, exactly. That's the main thing is you got to find the underlying, maybe you don't know the exactly the cause, but you can, if you take it a step at a time, help them get better with whatever it is the problem is. You can't obviously ask them or talk to them specifically about that, but the main thing too with that, from my perspective, is not only do I not want the me to get bitten or another person to get bitten, it's really you don't want to give the dog a bite history because when they get those, that's when they go down, potentially get put down, right? Because it depends who they bit. So by ignoring it, thinking, oh, I can just correct them and stop that communication at the early stage, that's where you get bites out of nowhere, people say, because
Right.
the dog has been punished for talking and saying, I'm afraid, I don't like this, don't bark, don't growl, don't whatever the behavior is the human doesn't like, they're shutting it down. And then that's where the dog gets just over threshold and just will bite out of nowhere. So we don't want that at all, and coming from the shelter system, I think we both kind of know that that's what happens a lot of the time when the dog's not really ready. But so I think we're getting close to our end of our Zoom call here. I know you had a couple other things down there. We have a few more minutes. There
Yeah, and
was
I think it's a
something.
great point, that you made about understanding body language, especially in a shelter system, is knowing that it's do or die. Like if they have a bite history in a lot of shelters, that's it for them,
Right,
right? So, and that bridge, that gap between the bridges is people that, everyday people, the shelter workers, the dog owners, if they don't understand the warning signs that the dogs are giving them, because the dog's saying, I'm uncomfortable, and then it ends up in a bite, and they end up being, you know, the worst case scenario, right?
right,
Um, that's probably the biggest point in understanding dog behavior, dog body language, is that alone, right?
Yeah.
So understand that just to keep them safe.
Yeah.
So some
It's
of
a
mine
life,
were
right?
right. So it's a life, and no one wants that to happen. So um, I think that we touch base on why is body language important. How does it help with training? How does it help or keep us safe? And then we touch base on that. And then I kind of wrote down like body language examples, lip licking, shake offs, yawning, body positions, growling, whale eye, and tail tucking
Yeah.
example.
Yeah. And what we can do is put some slides, I guess I'll call them, illustrations of all of those, and support this. So people who do view this as opposed to just listening to it, you'll get a little bit more information if you can do that.
Right.
Watch it, and it'll be up probably within the next couple days, which today, the 28th of November,
Yep.
2023. So
Yep.
in a few days, yeah, I'll have that all put together and we can publish that.
I
And
think, and I think a good thing we could do is giving how understanding body language got maybe saved dog. I don't know if we're going to talk about euthanizing, but save dogs from being euthanized or save dogs from progressing to a worse case scenario. So like we have a yellow dog that comes in, ends up as a purple,
right.
because we ignored their body language or whatever, or didn't understand them or whatever. I think it would be really good. Like here's a case example for Athena,
Oh, yeah,
right? We started working with her, when I did, she was locked in the cage, wasn't let out for how long,
right.
and you and I was like, we can't. She has to get out, right? So we worked with her on our muzzle cage and all that stuff. We
Yeah,
did it.
right, right.
Yeah. We double leashed her. Everyone was afraid of her, and then we understood why she was guarding. She basically guarded everything, like
Yeah,
grass.
randomly. Fun stuff, right?
Right. You just understood. You just don't. We ended up being able to pet her and touch her. Like I think those are really captivating stories, and people like stories.
Yeah, well, we can do that. We can do a part two. So that'll
Right.
come in, right? And she's
Yep.
definitely a good one.
Yeah, and Sally's a great one. You couldn't touch her for like more
Yeah,
than 3 seconds, right? So it's like we don't understand completely the story of this dog, but we learn from her body language how to work. Like I could pet her for 3 seconds and brush her outside of her run. Inside you couldn't touch her, and outside you could do this. She was a great dog. And then
yeah,
she ended up getting adopted, like stuff like that I think would really a story would really captivate people and bring
yeah,
them in, you
yeah.
know.
So everybody, yeah, stay tuned for part two. So
Right,
we'll sign off for now before we get cut off. And
right.
yeah, I'll put that out there. Maybe I'll put something at the end of this saying when that one's going to come out, and you and I can plan for that. Get it going.
Okay. Yep.
All right.
Sounds good.
Nice chatting with you.
Yep. Look forward to the next.
All righty.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.